Hi, part 2 of making a gum paste rose after we were so rudely interrupted by a phone call on my iPhone. Wasn't expecting that. So anyway, back to making roses. So we've got the 3 petals on the center and I've stabbed it into the styrofoam. I'm ready to do the next row of petals, which is 5. So I will again take the, I have to come back, the 5 petals from underneath the plastic. You will be sorry if you don't have them under plastic. And oh look, don't let them touch each other either because they will stick to each other as well. All right, so I've got them on the blue mat. I've got my ball tool, holding it like a pencil, and just, you can start out light and then apply a little more pressure until you see it starting to curve like that. That means you're getting nice thin edge. Don't worry about the center. Don't worry about the bottom either. Oh, and speaking of which, this blue mat is specifically for making gum paste flowers. It's supposed to have these holes in it, if you can see it. That's for another technique of making gum paste flowers. Not roses, however. So, it's not a very expensive little gum paste mat, but it's fine. It does really well. You can buy fancier gum paste mats, but this is fine. It's the budget version and it does everything it's supposed to do. But I guarantee you, you have to buy it online. All right, so I've ruffled all my edges. They're nice and thin. You can go back and do another one if you want to, whatever. Just, that's the idea, is you want to get it nice and thin like a real rose. All right, so here we go again. Put your finger in the water just a little bit, just to make it damp. You don't want to have water dripping off of it. You really want to try not to have water on the mat either, because that will mess you up if you need to roll out another petal or 2. All right, so they're just sort of damp. Okay, so we'll take the rose. Now we're going to attach the 5. So it's just a matter of spacing. Just like you did with the first row of 3 petals, you want to space it so that they're evenly spaced. And same thing with number 5, or the row of 5. You can start anywhere. I kind of go in between petals, not that it matters. Your first one goes on, you look at the height, make sure all your petals are about the same height, because sometimes you tend to push it down too far on the base. And then we'll just put 5 on, just try to space it as well as you can. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and if you can tuck number 5 underneath number 1, that edge, then you'll have a nice perfect spiral. Because look at a real flower, that's what they do. All right, I've got all my 5 petals on there. I'm sort of pinching it a little bit at the base. Okay, it's pretty opened up. You can you know, close in the petals a little bit. I can tell you this first row of 3 is already getting a little bit stiffer. So this dries very quickly. Now, as far as drying your rose, and you can see like 1 or 2 of these petals wants to fall down. That's okay. Many times what I do is hang it upside down to dry. And I'll just give my wire a little crook. And if you find the back of a chair or a gum paste box, anything where your flower is hanging upside down. And just leave it like that for probably a half an hour or an hour, and then the petals will set. Otherwise, if all looks well, you can probably just stick it in the styrofoam and let it dry like that, especially if you want a more open rose. Okay, so either way, it's just what you want as far as your rose. So that's kind of what it looks like right now. Because once it dries, then I can't reshape. It will just break. So I'm not sure what I want to do yet with this one. I'll probably just leave it open. Okay, got it. So I'll make one more, just so you can see the technique. Oh, you know what? No, I will not use that. I will use my second center with the 5 petal cutter so that you have another way of making roses. All right, so let me get some more gum paste. Take a piece of that, and you're probably going to make 2 or cut out 2 of these 5-petal rose flower things. And again, you can get them online at Amazon. You can get them in all different sizes. Really big ones to make bigger roses, really small ones to make much, much smaller roses. And I will also tell you that they are measured in millimeters. So get your ruler out that has millimeters on it, because I don't know if this is like a 35 millimeter, but that's how you're gonna find them listed online. All right, so a little bit of cornstarch on the table, and we'll roll it out. Once again, the properties are all the same. I'm gonna take that piece of paper and make sure I'm nice and thin. And the more cornstarch you put down, because we consider that to be a drying agent, that will mean that your petals will dry that much faster too. So that's kind of also the difference in gum paste. I know over the years I've used different brands, and I find the Wilton brand to be really wet. So if I want it to dry quickly, I have to add, I have to be generous in dusting the table with cornstarch. You could also dust the table with powdered sugar. I know you're gonna ask me that. Yes, I like cornstarch. And there it is, I can see some lines through. So I know I'm thin enough. All right. And like I said, I definitely prefer doing the 4 cutters. For me, it works better. So this rose may not be quite as nice looking. I just happen to prefer using the 4 cutters. Okay, anyway, so we're gonna cut out one of these. And I'm sure I'm gonna have to re-roll it because I didn't take enough gum paste the first time. And I'm just kind of separating the petals. There's also a difference between plastic cutters and metal cutters. Metal, you just get a much cleaner cut, and the plastic just tends to be a little rough on the edges. Not a big deal. All right, more cornstarch. I'm telling you, rush out and buy knee-high stockings. Clean. Don't use the ones that are in your drawer. You're not that desperate. All right. Throwing this on there. Yep, good enough. Okay, and number 2. So, like I said, the goal is to make everything edible, and you can, except of course with our little wire at the base, and this is opening up too much, so I'm gonna hang it upside down. Then it renders it inedible. But all the ingredients say it's edible. So you can certainly make a rose that is not on the wire. Now I'm gonna use, since I have this second center, I am gonna use it on here. So I'll take the mat, and again, thin out the edges, and try to keep your other one covered in plastic wrap. Just because it's a good idea, like that. There, we just put that away, because that'll be hard. Now, I will tell you, if you forget to wrap it up and it gets to be too hard, what you want to do is just take a little bit of Crisco and knead that into your gum paste, and you can save your gum paste. Okay, just a tiny little bit. I tend to put a little dab on my finger and then put a blob of gum paste down and just work it in, and that'll bring it back to good consistency to work with. All right, so I'm gonna thin these edges. Probably not quite as much as the first set of petals with the other cutter, but just give them a little thinness, because that's a sign of an amateur if you have really thick petals or store-bought flowers. But if your goal is to make beautiful flowers, you're going for realism, you want to have nice thin petals. Okay, so a little bit of water. Again, that's all you need for glue. Not too much, just a little. Right in the center, and a little bit on the petals, about 1/4 of the way up. You can always add more. You can also use a paintbrush if you want to. So the deal with this is you're gonna pick it up, and you're going to go right through with your wire, and you're gonna bring it up. So the first one, I still tend to, and first one I think I'll just get the whole cone wet, just a little bit to be sticky. Because again, you want to hide the cone. You can tell my fingers were a little wet, so get them in the cornstarch. So you're just going to wrap it around the cone as best as you can. Hide the cone. Nobody wants to see the cone. The cone is ugly. Okay, so a nice small spiral is your best bet. And now they say, so holding it towards me, if this was a person, that was the head, 2 arms, 2 legs. So the head is the petal that goes on first, and it's done. Then you're gonna go for an arm, and then skip the next petal and go to the leg. And you can kind of wrap it underneath. You're trying to make a spiral. Okay, and then you can go back again. And like I say, I'm probably just not very good at this because I like the other way better. Then you can put on another petal. I probably have to get it a little bit wetter there because I just kind of hit it. The idea is you just don't want to put all 4 consecutively after each other. Little tiny little bit of water on there, and paper towel and cornstarch because it's sticky, and just kind of put that on there. Okay, so this is what it looks like initially, and you know, I can bend them out a little bit just to make them look a little bit better. So as far as the height, my last 2 petals are trying to go a little bit lower. So I'm just looking at the top of the flower, trying to make sure that they're all about the same height. Okay, so that's the interior. Looks like a rose, you know, not totally disappointed with it. I like the other ones better. Stab it, get the other petal, same thing. We'll do the ball tool to thin out the edges. Just somewhat. Okay, a little bit of water is your glue. Put it just in the center. And if you see it all wet, and just kind of rub it in a little bit. Stick your fingers in the cornstarch. And right through again. So I'm going to do, and I don't think it really matters the order that you go in now. So I'm starting with basically the head, and then I'm going to skip one and do the next one, and skip one and do the next one. And then I'll come back, and eventually I just go, get on there. Whatever works, whatever works. So it's a perfectly fine looking rose. I just happen to like the other method better. So I'm kind of pinching it a little bit together, and same thing, how you want it to dry. You can either stick it in there and it's gonna kind of open up a little bit, or hang it upside down for a more closed rose. So I think I would do the same thing as I did before, hang it upside down. And so that's how you make a rose with 2 cutters. See, you have options. The last kind of rose cutter, my least favorite, but we'll give it a whirl. Okay, so I need another piece of gum paste. It all depends on which way. Now I can get it out of the bucket because of gum paste. Let's take that and that. So I'll put that off to the side. And here's a nice piece of gum paste. I'm gonna rip some off. Okay. Wrap up the rest. Keep it hidden away. Cornstarch. And it's slightly tacky right now. Different brands, like I said, some are really wet, some are not. There is another kind of gum paste out there, and I think it's called sugar paste, or platinum paste, sorry. Platinum paste. Very, very white. It's like a very high quality gum paste. Beautiful flowers, very expensive. This whole technique comes from the UK, Great Britain. So platinum paste is a British product. Again, probably not as thin so that you can see the paper through it, but just roll it thin. So this platinum paste is very expensive, but it is absolutely beautiful, makes gorgeous flowers. You can roll it really, really thin and it doesn't break. So it is hard to find as well. But if you ever see it, when I go to cake shows, then I look for platinum paste. So we're gonna thin out the edges a little bit, not quite as much as before. So it's just not as delicate a rose, but it's a quick rose. So if you need them fast, this is probably the way to go. So now we're gonna it's gonna get folded over. So I think I'll leave it on here. You're just gonna put some water down the middle so that it acts like glue to fold it over. So you can see the cut, and you're just going to fold it over, sort of petals in between petals. That's the way the cutter goes. So I hope you can see that, okay? And that's all, the only place really you want to attach it is right down that seam. Now, they say that you're just going to roll it. That's why it's the easiest rose cutter ever. So you simply start at one end and make a tight spiral. And I'll bet you have to put a little bit of water because you want everything to attach just at the bottom, not at the top of the petals. And you roll it. And you can see it's starting to look rose-like. Again, kind of try to keep the height. So it's just a rolled rose. And then you can come back and open it up. So I'm not crazy. If you can see, it's much higher in the center than it is on the outside edges. So to me, this is maybe, it is the easiest rose cutter, but it's the least lifelike looking rose. But it's fine for little filler flowers. If you just need a little something, you know, and if it doesn't look like a rose, we call it a ranunculus, which is a flower. I don't know what it looks like, but everything that's not quite a rose, we call it a ranunculus. And you dazzle your friends going, wow, you must know a lot about flowers. So, there, I have a ranunculus, okay? Look it up. It's a real flower, people. Okay, not to spite the ranunculus, but it's a little filler flower is what I'll call it. So there. All right, so we have that rose. Can you see? I'll try and get it close up here. Get the camera, and it's gonna fall right off, of course. But it's rose-like. Okay. If you go on Google and look for videos on how to use this cutter, they will show you pictures of absolutely gorgeous roses. So it might be me, not the cutter. And this is the one that was done with the 5-petal cutter. Not quite as lifelike, but it's not bad. Perfectly acceptable. And as I say, I like the one that's made with the metal cutter the best. And of course you could make this bigger. I would let this dry before I added another row of petals. Same thing with the 5-petal. But you can make it bigger and bigger, and that's when you would use the larger cutters to make more petals. So I think that's your lesson in gum paste flowers. I will just say, after you get them done, well, as you can see, I've got lots of pink ones, and the blue one, and the red one. So if you want a red rose, go ahead and color your gum paste first. Any kind of a gel color is fine. You can, if you wanted to, afterwards, airbrush to give it whatever color you wanted to. But typically, if you want a dark color, you would go ahead and color your gum paste first. And then after they've dried, next week or whatever, you could come back with some petal dust and just give it some little accents, or spray it with a luster dust or sparkle dust or anything like that. So these are just made with a pink gum paste. I haven't done anything else to them, but as you can see on the lily, afterwards you went back and painted them and added more depth and detail to make it look lifelike. So anything you want to do there, okay? Thank you for your time. Enjoy gum paste.